Hey, everybody. Welcome to the OMG Tarot podcast. In this episode, I'm sitting down with Niels of Adventures in Quiet Places. We're talking about the arrival method, the rite of passage experience that he and his partner have developed for high achieving women who are ready for the next step. Who are they going to be next? So, without further ado, here it is. Hey, everybody. Today I am sitting down with Niels of the Arrival Method, and we're talking about what he does, how he helps women, and how tarot fits into that. So, hey, Niels, thanks for chatting with me today.
Lindsay, thank you so much for the invitation. I'm looking forward to this one.
Ah, awesome. Me too. So, yeah, tell us a bit about yourself. Just, who are you? How did you get into this line of work? Tell us about the Arrival Method. Tell us everything.
Oh dear. Starting with the easy questions. What do you do? This is not something that I was ever thinking that would be able to do. It's not something that you find a brochure at your high school, go like, oh, I'd like to do that. No, we live in the middle of nowhere and we um help women go through ancient rites of passage to pull in massive amounts of change in their lives. And we do that at the old forgotten sacred sites of Ireland. So, like I said, no brochure in high school. We kind of just fell into this. It just kind of started to grow and grow and grow. And now we're here. We are in the middle of bloody nowhere, at the very edge of the old world. Uh, in Ireland at the Atlantic coast. It's right where the mountains drop into the sea. And this is one of the most densely populated sites in the whole of Europe for megalithic sites. So, megalithic sites, we of course think pyramids, we think Stonehenge and stuff like that. Ireland has an enormous amount of hugely impressive megalithic sites. Think, for example, Newgrange, Noth, and Louth. But there are also a ton of just abandoned stone circles, stone rows, single standing stones, just places of worship that were used by the people of this land in the past and that are now just standing there forgotten by time and really by everyone. And we went out to find these places, and what we found was just mind boggling. These places are still there, they still have their power, and they are as incredible and impressive as the day that they were built. Now, they're not all the size of Stonehenge, far from it. A lot of them are minuscule, are just almost cute, if you will. But because of that, they are overlooked. Only the local farmers know about them. And thus, you have the place all to yourself. It might be that you're the only one there that year that actually comes and visits them. So it's a very, very special place and places to go and do ceremony. They were built as ceremonial places and they still function that way.
Wow.
That's a small little start.
That sounds amazing. Um, and do you do ceremony there?
Oh, yes, yes, yes. So you might be hearing from my accent. I am actually not Irish myself. I am Dutch. My partner is Irish. And when I first came to this country, I knew nothing of what I would find here. Ireland is an island of mainland Europe, and even in Europe, we don't learn that much about the island. Yeah, we know Celts. That's about what we know. So when I set foot on the island for the first time in 2007, I was blown away by what I found. I had no idea about the archaeological background of the place and the potency of the place. So when I actually started to live here, I went out. I went out into the countryside, into the mountains to find as much as I could find. And slowly but surely, we started to invite our friends over, colleagues over, and more people came, and they were all blown away by what they found here. And then when you start to actually work with the sites, something else starts to happen within ceremony and within deep, deep trance work. Oh dear. things start to happen. These places have basically been primed because they've not been used for such a long time, have been primed to start to work finally again with people who approach them with the right etiquette, with the right attitude, and with the right consciousness. Basically, with the right frame of mind. And when you do, it is so rewarding to see. So we started doing this and it started to just kind of snowball.
Interesting. The ceremonies that you do, are they based on ancient Celtic traditions, or are they? Do they have a lineage? Okay.
Somewhat. There are a few things about Celtic spirituality that are specifically Irish, specifically Celtic, and I do integrate them into the ceremonies themselves. But the main thing that we do is, like I said at the beginning, rites of passage. And rites of passage are old ways of doing ceremonies, and we'll tackle that first before we go to the Irish stuff, the Celtic stuff. Rites of passage are huge ceremonies, usually covering multiple days, sometimes even multiple weeks or multiple months. And the way that the ancients used to do this is they figured out at a certain moment we all go through massive amounts of change through our life. And sometimes the person that we are at this moment, it just no longer fits both the role that we play for ourselves and for our loved ones and for our tribe. We need to change. We need to start to fulfill a different role within society. But you don't just do that. It is so easy to slip back in your old habits and in the old way of how you used to be. So, a rite of passage was devised, and you find this back in every single culture, to first let the old you die. So, you go into a liminal space and a liminal time to cut yourself off from where you normally find home. You go into the depths to reinvent yourself. Sometimes this is an ego death. Sometimes this is the refining of your power. And then you come out of it again. And then the whole tribe sees you coming out of that huge rite of passage or that ceremony. And they now expect you to behave differently. They expect you to now be that other person that has gone through the ceremony. And now they can hold you to different standards. You have different rights and obligations within the tribe now. And because everybody is now treating you differently, it's far easier to have those new habits actually stick because you are being witnessed and held accountable by your tribe. Now, in the olden days, rites of passage happened at multiple stages of your life. If a young man needed to become a hunter, you could go through a rite of passage. Of course, when you got married, or moment that you have had your last child, your birthing years are behind you, maybe you now need to become an elder, not just for your children, but now for the whole tribe. Or massive amounts of deep, deep change on an identity level. But in our modern day, the only thing that we really still have left like that is marriage. We treat you differently the moment that you have a ring on your finger versus before. It's basically, okay, offline, we don't touch you. We expect you now to also behave differently. But other than that, those big rites of passage, we don't really have them anymore. But that doesn't mean that our need for them has vanished. We still go through the exact same changes as human beings walking this earth as we grow and evolve through our day to day lives. And sometimes we really need to make that massive change. And the way that our society is set up now is everyone and everything expects us always to just be the same person. Our bosses want us to be the same. Our spouses expect us to be the same. Our friends, all of it. So if you need to make a massive change and all of a sudden you start to behave differently, yeah, that's difficult for people. So your old life oftentimes starts to push back the moment that you try to make this massive change. So that's what we do. We basically say, hey, we're here in the mountains. We're in the middle of nowhere. If you need to make that massive of a change, you need to step out of your ordinary life for a little while and put in those massive changes for you and being witnessed by a let's just call us a tribe as well for just a few moments of putting those changes into place, we can fulfill that role. So that's what we devised with the arrival method is a rite of passage in the way that the old people, the old tribes used to do it. So we prepare you ahead of time. And now when you come in here in Ireland and we take you up into the mountains and we teach you all kinds of tools to make those changes actually stick, we guide you into the depths and out again. It's really that hand-man kind of energy where now I'm not the biggest tarot reader ever, but if I remember this correctly, it is the energy and the vibe of the being in the waiting room of life, where sometimes you just need to sit in silence and wait outside of your normal life. I think I'm putting the finger on it there. So outside of your normal life, you just go away for a little bit and you just wait and do the ceremony. That's the kind of energy that we are holding here. And then we keep on walking with you afterwards, after you've gone through this, after you've worked with the land and with the stones and inside of your own mind. And walk you back out again, very slowly, very surely, small steps back into your new life now, without blowing up your old life. Because honestly, it's the blowing up of your old life is something that we've heard so much when dealing with big changes in the alternative field. You might have heard this about this, Lindsay. Let's say you do a ayahuasca ceremony or some kind of psychedelic or some kind of trance work, and you have this enormous aha moment. You have this breakthrough, and you see maybe the divine or a completely new view on your life, and it rattles you and it shakes you to your very core. May you come out of the ceremony? And the facilitators are completely hands off if there are any facilitators to begin with. They are completely hands off, and now you just have to go back home and figure it out by yourself. Okay, you've just touched the divine. Now what? Your life is upside down. If you don't really have anyone to either witness you or to guide you through that, either it just becomes a beautiful dream, something where change is just, you can't sustain it, or what can happen is you make the decision, okay, I've seen that huge change. I am now a different person. I'm going to blow up my life. I'm going to end all my relationships. I'm going to divorce my husband. I'm going to quit the job, all of that. And within a few months, your life is cratered. We don't want to do it. We want to make sure, okay, if you're going to do this massive change, you do this smartly. You do this small steps, but you do it consistently the moment that you're back again with slowly starting to change things around in your relationships, in the way that you show up in your home life, in the boundaries that you say that you uphold, who you say no to, who you say yes to every single day, small steps, small victories, then it becomes sustainable. Then you give it roots instead of, again, blowing up your life.
That's I love that. That's beautiful because yeah, I was just when you were talking a bit about, say, doing an ayahuasca ceremony and then you come back, like, think about that. You have an ego death and then you have to go to your meeting the next day. Okay. Like that's not sustainable. That's not helpful. That's okay. I still have to punch into this corporate job and now I've done it post ego death. I still have to complete this PowerPoint. I still have to answer emails.
The disconnect is enormous. It also says a lot about our modern day society that we are so masculine, force driven orientated, so left brain orientated. There is almost no time in even just your closest relationships to discuss or take seriously things like ceremony or something like an ego death. There's just no space for it. Now I understand why that is, um, but we have lost so much by giving up that side of life.
We have. I agree. Um, so Can you tell us a bit more about just like tangibly what might drive somebody to come upon the arrival method and decide that this is for them? Like, what kind of life changes tend to drive people toward you?
Oh, the big ones, the really, really, really big ones. We kind of joke here that if you come to us, you've kind of exhausted all other options.
Ah,
Um, Oftentimes, it is the outward symptoms that get them here, but they know darn well that the outward symptoms are not the actual underlying issue. So, an outward symptom might be a divorce. It might be problems with infertility. It might be a menopause. It might be, I know that I'm at the end of the career that I've built and that I've put 20 years in, but I know this won't sustain me. I need to change. If we start digging, oftentimes, not always, Lindsay, but oftentimes, what's behind all of that is that the women that come to us, they're highly successful, they're incredibly intelligent. They've really made a successful life for themselves, but they've always had something inside of them that they just cannot deny. And this has oftentimes been with them since they were as young as they can remember. Um, it's been gestating inside of them and growing inside of them their whole lives. This other thing that they know that they need to do, that thing that they know that they need to be. And it's been growing and growing and growing. And now, right at that moment that the rest of their life, that there's this break point, the career change, the ending of a relationship, the menopause, oftentimes burnout, that other thing that has always been there is now just screaming in their ear. And if you come to us, what we work with is pulling that thing through, whatever it is, to give it fertile ground and to give it a place in your new life that it's functional and that it can be as big as it can be. For some, they become healers. Others become mothers to their tribes. There's a lot of creativity that comes out. If I would have to really point to a central theme, is that whatever it is, that big thing that they need to pull through, the central theme is, and this term has been somewhat bastardized, but divine femininity. So what I mean with that is the following: stepping fully and utterly into your receptive feminine, which is a completely different way of doing things. Now, I mentioned before about the masculine left brain oriented way of doing things. It's a lot of pushy, pushy, pushing, and a lot of analytical work. For the ladies that come to us, they've been so successful with doing that. They've got strong analytical minds. That's how they made their careers, but they're bloody exhausted. It is. It's not that they can't do it. It's just that they're sick and tired of it, and they know there's a different way of being in the world. And it's almost like they want to go from what we like to call from a personality based approach to a presence based approach. And that's what we pull through, that presence. And that is highly feminine. And it's beautiful to see when it happens.
that sounds absolutely beautiful. How long does uh how long does working with you take on average? Because I know you said you tend to take a much slower approach with a lot of follow through even after the lady has left you and gone home. So yeah, how long is kind of the average commitment?
Oh, it's about a day. I flip a switch and you're done. No, um, this takes time. We have a saying, you can't microwave the soul. When you're talking about changes this big, it needs time. Changes this big, they cannot be rushed. Ceremony cannot be rushed. So when you come to us, it really depends upon how much time we have. It also depends upon the Irish tourist season, which is a very short season where you are not washed away by the Irish rain and weather. But keeping all of that in mind, it usually is about 4 to 5 weeks of preparatory, deep preparatory work ahead of time. Could be longer, could be up to 3 months of preparatory work ahead of time. Then a minimum of 6 to 8 days here in Ireland, can be longer, oftentimes is longer. And then we rock another 3 months with you afterwards, while we keep on checking in, while we keep on doing the deep, deep work, and making sure that all the tools that you learned with us to sustain that new being that we are trying to pull through is actually that they're working, um, and that you are actually putting into practice what you learned here. Otherwise, again, it's just a nice memory. So this can be, because we go to all of those sacred sites and the forgotten sacred sites, this could be seen as another sacred site tour. If you've ever been on the sacred site tours, they're fun, they're beautiful, they're oftentimes very well organized, but they're just spiritual experiences. And they're oftentimes in groups, so you have a lot of fun, but they're just spiritual vacations. And that is not what we do. We expect you to work and to put in that work and to keep on doing that work so that the goal that we are after actually is achieved. We want to know exactly, okay, who is that outrageous person that we want to pull through for you? Okay, dream big. Is that all you have? Come on, dream a little bit bigger. Okay, now we're talking. Now let's focus on that. And we take it very seriously. So um, we're not happy with just half arsing it from us or from you.
Mhm. Yeah. So, can you tell me a bit more about why you only work with women?
Oh yeah. On a very practical level, a lot of the tools that we use have a neurobiological background that make it more effective to work with women. Now, I can go into that a little bit later. On a other practical level, I come from a family filled with women. That's just it's been my reality. Um, so that is the very practical thing. But let's just adjust the elephant in the room here. You know as well as I, Lindsay, if you've ever spent any amount of time in the alternative field, you need to be very, very aware of broken people and of people that I like to call the linen pants predators, people with less than savory reasons for being there. So, to be very candid, you're going into the mountains with a man that you only know from of course, there's a lot of pre work, so there's a lot of trust already built up. But you're going into the mountains one on one work uh, in the middle of nowhere. You need to be very, very discerning. So, just to put or point that out, in the spiritual field, you just have to be careful. And trust is earned. And what I'd like to say with this is the way that you really figure out who can be trusted is who makes you dependent upon yourself and who tries to keep the power with them as the guru or the know-it-all. And that is one of the heuristics or the rules of thumb that I use to see, okay, who can I trust in this space? Who really wants the best for me? Who's rooting me on to become the best possible version of myself? Who has testimonials that make clear, hey, you can actually trust this person? Um, or who wants to maintain control over me? And you can tell quite a lot um, from that. But yeah, we work specifically with women, also because the tools just work better for women.
I see. Interesting. And are they primarily from Europe or are they from all over the world?
All over the world, although the majority do come from Canada and from the US. So you have a lot of people from the Irish diaspora with Irish lineage, but we are finding more and more and more, and this is going to be a little bit woo woo, but hey, I'd say that's right up the alley of your audience. We're finding more and more that even people that don't have a drop of Irish blood in their bones, Ireland is still calling them. And we joke around here that we say Ireland is calling our people home. Doesn't mean that you have to be Irish at all. We've had instances here of people from Indian descent, Native American Indian descent, cresting a hill, looking out over a megalithic site and go like, holy shit, I remember this.
Oh, wow.
Now, and
That's amazing.
impacting them to such a degree that you got, yeah, and it that doesn't happen once or twice. It's quite a common occurrence. There is a tradition within Irish literary history that is connected to the fight for freedom of Ireland from the British. That's called the Ashling, and Ashling is also a woman's name, but Ashling can be translated as the dream. And the idea is that Ireland, the personification of Ireland as a young maiden or a beautiful young woman, comes to you in a dream, sometimes to talk about freedom and sovereignty. Ireland and Irish goddesses have a very strong connection to freedom and sovereignty, sometimes for other messages. And another thing that you will start to notice from people who, again, are being called to this island is that personification starts to show up in their dreams. The Ashling is actually a weird, even though it's a literary tradition and it was used to make a point and pamphlets and propaganda against the British, there seems to be something actually going on there. So when people tell me I've I've had dreams about Ireland specifically in the form of a young woman, I am not surprised in the slightest.
Hmm, that's I've never heard of that before, but that's fascinating. Now I want to go read a whole lot about the Ashland. Huh.
It's like we said, that particular thing has a lot to do with sovereignty and with freedom. So the ladies that we work with, especially the moment that they start to become a little bit more seasoned, a little bit further along in their journey. The youngest that we work with is 27. The oldest has been scrambling up the mountain at 72.
Oh wow.
Wow. But the majority are in their 30s, late 30s, 40s, and 50s. And then they are making that perimenopause to menopause transition, and they are starting to go into their eldership role. The
And that
focus of go for it.
Oh, sure. Yeah, and that's kinda as you were explaining earlier, that's what kept going through my mind is that transition from the mother to the crone, and just that whole sense of, the maiden, mother, crone, those different phases of one's life. But, I was thinking
Hold on to this thought because I have a few things to say about the crone. In Celtic mythology, she's a very specific person, the Hag of Bera, and where we do our work is Bera, as in we go and visit the Hag.
Oh, wow.
We're visiting the crone goddess of Irish mythology. But we'll get back to that. Um, so they've used to focus a lot on their career and on their loved ones and again, creating life. But now they are transitioning out of that. Where does all that creative energy go? It goes inside. It's instead of I'm doing everything and all the things for everybody around me, it is refocusing on building themselves up now. True sovereignty. And the goddesses of Ireland, again, has always been sovereignty goddesses. And that maiden to wife to crone energy and triple goddess energy comes back here over and over again. Now, like we said, we are here on the Bella Peninsula. It's one of the five peninsulas that stick out like fingers in the southwest west into the Atlantic Ocean. And this is the home of the Hag of Bera or the kayak in Irish. And she is a figure that is known not just in Ireland, but also the Isle of Man. That's just known as Scotland in Wales, sometimes under different names. But she's the old woman, sometimes the old woman at the edge of the world. She is that wise old one that doesn't take shit from everyone. She's also a mother of storms, the queen of winter, very specific energy, and she is known all over the British Isles. But one place is her actual home. It's her headquarters, her base, and that is here, literally where I'm talking from. So on day zero, one of the things that we do is talk to her. Just go like, "Hey, this is Lindsay. Lindsay will be working with her own energies on your land. We just good etiquette. And then later on, during the time that you're with us, we go and bring some offerings on her, um, well-known petrified remains, which is a bit of a tourist spot. And then later on, we even go to a place that nobody knows about, that is a private spot, just to honor the energies and the etheric milieu that you are working in. So it's again etiquette and doing things in the proper way. We did talk about the Celtic spirituality aspect of things. And one of the main aspects that I do touch upon while the ladies are here is the idea of right relationship, which it comes back again in Celtic spirituality very clearly. Right relationship is the idea that everything is alive, not everything has a conscious, and you are in relationship with all of those things, with the fairies, with the mountains, with the land itself, with your tribe. And there's a very specific way of holding yourself. You don't just go to a stone circle and go like, okay, I'm here now. Show me something. Nothing's going to happen. That's not how the stone circles work here. Sometimes it might, but very rarely. No, you hold yourself in a very specific consciousness that you are so grateful to be there. And with the understanding, I'm a person in a long, long list of people. Generations have come and gone before me, and generations will come and go after me. It is not about me in this place. It's almost like I am being dreamt by the stone circle instead of the stone circle being dreamt by me. So it's putting yourself in a light relationship through those power sources on the land. And that is one idea of Celtic spirituality, right relationship, and how you hold yourself to the other players in the world around us, the other power places, players that we tend to ignore. Another one is the idea of Anamkara. That's a quite a well-known one. And Anamkara is a soul friend, oftentimes a soul teacher, or a teacher that becomes a soul friend. So that is, it's mainly written down by the Christian scribes of the middle or the high Middle Ages and sometimes the early Middle Ages of a phenomenon that was already well established within Irish culture before the Christians came. And the idea here is that you will bump into people in your life that have such an enormous impact, where the friendship goes so deep that it changes, and they see you on such a deep level, and they hold you to such high options that for you to reach to, that they really get the best out of you. Now, in our culture nowadays, it's very easy for anything like that to be interpreted as romantic or s- soulmates or something like that. But oftentimes, this was not romantic at all. It was just a deep, deep platonic love between two individuals who recognized something within each other and walked side by side for a long time, getting the best out of each other on a very deep spiritual level. And that's the Anamkara, a soul friend.
I really like that. And as you were mentioning it, I kind of just thought of a couple different major arcana cards that communicate that type of energy. Would you like to see them?
Yes.
Okay. So initially, I thought of the Hierophant, which the Hierophant is in a lot of ways a teacher. But we actually have two teachers in the major arcana. We have the Hierophant, which is more of the teacher of the day to day and the how to be a human, how to conduct yourself in this world. But there is a spiritual component, and there is this sense that the Hierophant works with you and walks with you forever, seeing to it that you grow up properly and conduct yourself in an appropriate way. But then we also have the High Priestess, and she's kind of the inverse of the Hierophant. She is the spiritual leader. And so I'm actually kind of seeing a lot more Ankara energy in the High Priestess, which I'll show you her in a moment. Let me just find that. Here's the Hierophant. So here's the Hierophant. As you can see, he's styled to look very Christian, and in a lot of decks, he looks like the Pope. But he symbolizes more of the grounded, earthly aspects of existing here and living your life. Then we have the High Priestess, and she is, well, she's the teacher and the guide to your entire spiritual side. So she brings you out of the mundane world into the spiritual one and ensures that you make the same kind of progress there.
I love that. And one of the things that I'm noticing here, and please correct me if I'm wrong. Again, I am not too well versed within the tarot, but for both cards, I was seeing the crescent moon, one on top with the high priestess, but with the hierophant as a almost like a necklace around around the neck.
Yep.
And from what I remember, that is oftentimes the symbol for magic and high magic and Hecate within at least Mediterranean traditions. Am I making any connection here, or am I way off?
No, you are. In tarot, yeah, the moon pretty much it symbolizes the unknown and the abstract. Kind of think like the dark side of the moon, all the things that are still there and present, whether you can see them or not. The moon can also speak to your inner world, so your emotions, your perceptions, your intuition, just basically all the things that are just as present and relevant as tangible things, but we don't always recognize them and we don't always see them clearly at first glance because they're not so overt.
I'm just almost I'm listening, but at the same time, one of my cats just dragged in, of course, a mouse that he's currently eating in front of me.
Oh, well,
I am paying attention, but I'm also going like, really, right now, in front of me? Does this has to happen?
uh, it's all good.
Oh, I absolutely love that. The also kind of what I'm hearing you say is something that is comes back within our spirituality as well, and that is the idea of there are different levels to existence and different planes of existence. The Irish do have an underworld, but it doesn't play as big of a role as it does the other world, which is a parallel plane of existence inhabited by the fairies. Our well-known fairies, they go to Macmel or the Plain of Delight or the or Tir na Nog, the land of everlasting youth. That's where they come from, and that is a spiritual plane that is intertwined with the physical world here. And there are certain access points within the Irish landscape to get to the other world, or where the beings from the other world, the fairies, can come out and mess with the physical world. Now, when we say fairies, first up, I do need to dispel the whole idea of beings with wings. That is a Shakespearean and later Victorian invention of trying to portray ethereal beings, and it kind of stuck. So if you're thinking Tinkerbell, that is not the Irish fairies. The Irish fairies are far more, how shall we say, they're not harmless at all. Now, if you would ask a an Irish grandmother, and every Irish person will have heard this story, who are the fairies? They will tell you something like, as good Christians, of course, when God created the heavens and the earth, there were certain beings that fell, those became the demons. There were certain beings that stayed loyal and they went up to heaven. And then there were the in between that weren't bad enough for hell, but not good enough for heaven either. And they became the fairies. So that is the story that every Irish person will have heard from their grandmother. But in Irish mythology, the story actually goes a little bit deeper. The fairies were actual gods or a tribe of gods. I'll make the story very, very quick. Ireland doesn't have a creational myth, it has an origin story. And those are two really different ways of approaching it. But the theme of the origin story has always been, how did people come to this island? And it's Ireland itself is central to the whole theme. So there are six waves of invasions of peoples coming to this island. It's coming out of the Laua Gavala Erin, which is the Book of the Takings of Ireland. It's a medieval manuscript. And it's talking about six invasions, of which the Irish or the Milesians are the sixth and final wave. The moment that they hit the shores of Ireland, they bump into the fifth wave, which is a tribe of mythical half godlike beings called the Tuatha Dé Danann, or the tribe of the goddess Danu. And these are wizards of high renown, mystical beings who have control over weather and are fantastic with magic and sword fighting and all kinds of culture. And they make the land sing and make the land fertile and all of that. Now, they fight a battle, the modern day Irish and the Tuatha De Danann. They get to a truce. The real story is far longer. And they get to the settlement. The Tuatha, the mythical tribe of beings, will go into the fairy forts, into the fairy mounds, into the stone circles, those access points to the other world, and they will retreat to Tir na Nog, to the other world, but still will have influence out of those places on the physical above ground Ireland. And then the Milesians, the Irish, can have above ground as long as they treat the land in the right way, honoring it, singing to it, having a that right relationship with the land. But every so once in a while, the fairies will come out. So the through literary history, those gods become smaller and smaller and smaller and become our modern day idea of the fairies. So the fairies are actually a mythical kind of demigod like creatures. It's also a compilation term. So it's not only those beings, you also have leprechauns, you have the banshees who wail in anticipation of a death in a family. You've got the headless horsemen, you've got all kinds of beings, and not all of them are as well the they don't regard human life with the utmost respect at all times. So you have to be very careful with the fairies in Ireland. Bit of a catch in that.
No, but it's interesting because honestly, I really knew pretty much nothing. I know the fairies are sometimes referred to as the fae, um, and I know sometimes if something of yours goes missing, the fairies might be behind it. Am I getting that right?
Yes, absolutely. You also have elemental beings which fall under that compilation term of fairies. They can play tricks on you, absolutely. Uh, and some of them are downright evil. Other ones are very well regarded by the locals. But by and large, you just have to have a huge amount of respect for the fairies. They are even called by the locals the good folk, just to make sure that if they do hear you speak about them, that you always know, okay, you talk well about the good folk. So, how should we put this? There are certain ways to make sure that their evil eye doesn't fall upon you. There are certain ways of holding yourself to make sure that if they try to get your attention, that you just keep on walking and try to remain your distance with them. The point that I'm trying to make here is that fairies are still alive and kicking within the cultural zeitgeist of the Irish. Now, Ireland is modern. We have Facebook and Google and all. We work with AI, and we're a tax haven for the whole world. We do our shipping and our you have the companies and all of that. We're just as modern as Canadians or Americans, although our roads are a little bit worse. But within that, the Irish still take fairies ridiculously seriously as a cultural force, sometimes a cultural pride to be aware of. So if you have a piece of land and you want to build upon it, completely secular or even Christian Irish people that have businesses that are smart, that are sharp, if they have a ring fort on that piece of land that they want to build on, I'm sorry, but you will have to buy the land right beside it because you do not disturb the fairies. Everybody knows a story about someone who has had an encounter with the fairies. I've had one recently myself. So I'm going like, okay, I'm going to keep on walking. I've been warned about this, and I am just going to keep on going with. I'm not responding to this. Um, Everybody has had a story like that, either to them or one of their families. And we oftentimes, of course, joke that, of course, there was a bit of a drink involved. Sure, it is. But the point here is the fairies are alive and kicking, and their access points to the upper world, to modern day Ireland are these liminal places in the landscapes, those breakpoints in the landscape, the stone circles, the standing stones, the ring forts, the fairy forts, um, mist on a lake or a cave, a sea cave, or things like that. Ireland is dotted with those places. Food in the hundreds of thousands of those kinds of archaeological or natural places, but on a very small island. So the power of the fairies, that otherworldly power, is actually the island is drenched in it because of those access points. Um, so it's a really different place, at least in my view, because of those access points.
It sounds absolutely magical. You're making me slightly paranoid that if I ever am in Ireland, I'm going to be looking over my shoulder, like for fairies trying to tempt me the whole time.
Yeah. Just don't take any stones from ring forts. Have a piece of metal with you, and if you do hear somebody call your name in a voice that's not quite right after dusk, just keep walking.
Will do. Yeah, no, I will be on my absolute best behavior if I'm ever in Ireland. I'm like worried. I'll just nope, hands in the pockets. Do not look at anyone. Do not engage.
Oh no, you might miss the advances of a charming local Irishman. No, I
Yeah,
think that
just keep on walking.
that's, might be a very
Yeah. That sounds wonderful. It sounds like the absolute perfect backdrop for the arrival method and for what you do with these women.
yeah. Um, a big part is being in liminal place, liminal space and liminal time. So going out of your normal life and then going to places that were actually made for ceremony to do very deep work there. So yeah, if you are hiking for an hour, 1.5 hours through rough terrain, beautiful sights, and then you're already in a different state of mind by just the hiking. Your brain is releasing something that's called BDNF, which is a protein that helps with. It's basically brain fertilizer. It makes you able to make new connections very easily if you are in an elevated heart rate for quite a long time due to access loss. So you are hiking, you are priming your mind for deep change, and then you go and do deep hypnosis and trance work at these sacred sites. You work with the energies. Oh, that is rocket fuel for growth and for change.
That sounds awesome. Yeah. And can you tell us a bit more about your clinical background, or do you want to share a bit about that?
Sure. First up, I'm a hypnotist and an archaeologist of all things. So I have a background in digging either into the dirt or into people's minds. So I like to look beyond the surface. So I am not a therapist. I don't pretend to be a therapist. And what we do is not meant to replace therapy in any way, shape, or form. It's a completely different tool for a different problem. So while I was working with my clients up in the mountains at these sacred sites, I started to notice something. And that is the better that they felt, the deeper the changes seem to stick with them. And it really started to stand out. So you already have the deep hypnosis work. If you do that for days and days on end, oh, you can make some changes. If you add with that the mystical sites themselves, you are adding a little bit of extra oomph to it already and working with those energies. If you put it into the container of a rite of passage, man, you're all again, it becomes TNT. I started to figure out that if I teach these ladies to feel absolutely amazing, filled with joy and pride, deep spiritual awe as lived experiences during these sessions, I capture that under the header, feeling pleasure. If you do that, it just becomes, you do all of that plus rocket fuel. It just explodes. And the changes that you are able to make in your mind and in your belief systems and identity, they stick so much better when you go home, especially if you learn how to recreate all of this on the go. So that's what I started to notice. But again, not a clinician. I don't have a medical background. So I start to dig and try to figure out what the hell is going on with these ladies. Why, when they feel better and better and better, do the changes stick more and more and more? So I didn't start with a theory somewhere in the lab or a textbook. No, I was noticing changes with my clients before my eyes and was going like, okay, what is going on? And this is the thing that I found harkens back to what I said before. The techniques that we use are better suited for women, although they work with men as well. And that is that the female brain is optimally made to have changes stick through pleasure even more than the male brain does. So, for example, when you are in peak stage of pleasure, part of your inner critic, you have several gatekeepers in your mind, several prison guards that allow you to stay who you are in times of stress, but also guard against huge sudden changes, which can be really annoying if you're trying to do identity upgrade work. One of those inner prison guards is the lateral orbital frontal cortex. You can forget that word the moment that you hear it, but you have this inner critic that in peak states of pleasure completely shuts down on women. So this inner critic is dead silent, so that anything that you basically whisper into your subconscious mind is activated way more, is integrated way more than when that thing is actually active. Now combine that with, for example, that BDNF, that brain compost that we have created by hiking to a place, you start to make new neural connections. And there are so many neurotransmitters that are released in deep states of joy and bliss that are actually helpful with making new connections and making them stick and powering down all of these mental prison guards. But one of the things that we do is the teaching you how to get into contact with your own reward systems in your own mind so that you can keep on doing this. So it's a completely different way of learning to grow. Instead of working through pain, no gain, that whole paradigm, you start to work with such profound positive changes that you can recreate in your own mind. And we teach you very quickly from day one, not to just to make this a mind trick, but to actually feel it. Your body starts to sing and you can recreate it on the go. You can actually learn how to get into contact with your own reward centers in your brain on command. And once you know how, it's actually rather easy.
That's that's amazing. That sounds so fascinating.
It is a lot of fun. It is a lot of fun to especially with the older ladies, to see them allowing themselves a new way of being, and the utter joy. One of the things that you can recreate and can use as a resource is something as what did it feel like the first time that you looked into your firstborn's eyes? That's a resource that you've experienced. You can recreate that, and you can use that as, again, rocket fuel because it feels so good. Or maybe you remember 40 years ago, your first dance, and how you were held and how you were hugged, how good that felt. That is a resource that we can use and that we can recreate to use to fuel the changes and to release all of those neurotransmitters in your mind to make the new ways of being stick. Now, quick note on this. Growing through pain is, evolutionarily speaking, ridiculously effective. You put your hand on a hot stove only once, and that's very sticky. You never do that again. Or you, as a young child, you go and you speak up for your needs with an unstable family member. You figure out really quickly that that is unsafe, and thus you don't do it again. But now you have the trauma and the baggage of not speaking up for your needs, even up in your older, in your older age. The learning through pleasure is a completely different way of doing things, and it can be literally any pleasure that you have in mind. So the having a lot of pride of doing things and doing things correctly and being seen doing things correctly can be an enormous resource that you can just use to reinforce anytime that I do the right thing for that new person that I want to be, even now that I'm back home again out of Ireland and it's 3 weeks down the line and I say no to my crappy boss, I put up my boundaries. Reteach you now, okay, the moment that you do that, you did the right thing for the new person that you want to be, and your reward center in your mind just releases a whole slew of dopamine and amandonite, um, and all kinds of happy chemicals to reward you that you did the right thing. And thus, change becomes sustainable. It becomes a feedback loop.
And that's how changes stick. That's awesome. Uh,
Like I said, it's
really,
so much fun.
yeah, really cracked the code there on something that I think a lot of people spend their lifetimes trying to figure out.
Pure accidents.
Yeah. Oh, well, hey, it was a happy accident, like a chocolate chip cookie.
Exactly that. That's one of the sayings that we have. We teach you how to get your own cookie, how to bake your own cookie, and you basically can have your cake and eat it too.
And honestly, the best cookies are the ones you make yourself. Like when you can taste a little bit of the homemade in there. At least that's been my experience.
Amen to that.
Yeah.
A partner just made one, and oh, it was a good one.
So,
I'll leave you with the following. It is so helpful if you have somebody who can witness you, who can see you go through a change, can honor you in that, and can hold you accountable on the other side when you come out again, out of your calabasas, out of your descent into the underworld. It can hold you accountable to when you inevitably going to slip and slide back into your old habits. It is two step forwards, one step back if you try to make a change this big in modern day society. So if you need to do something like this, find a friend, find a confidant, an accountability buddy, someone that you can trust to see you once you come out on the other side and call you out on your crap when you are not living up to that new person. Um, really, really helpful.
do you find that a lot of the women who've worked with you then become each other's accountability buddies? Oh, just
It's
curious.
a so this is not group work. This is one-on-one work. So they don't have contact with one another. It's incredibly personal. You can understand that if you go into something like this, um, it is so intimate and it is so personal, and the stuff that comes out again. This is not trauma work. It's not therapy. It's not meant to be, but stuff comes out that to share that with somebody who's not gone through it with you right there and then. Um, no, you really have to do that with somebody that you already know or with a friend or confidant.
I see.
And I really do try to keep the privacy of the ladies as best as I can as well. So there's not like a group forum of, oh, how did you experience this life? And no, 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 no. It's one-on-one work.
Mhm. Fair. Yeah. All right, well, awesome. Well, thank you so much for chatting with me today and for being on the podcast. I really appreciate it. And I've learned a lot. Now I know exactly which rabbit holes I want to go down and read more about and learn more about.
Lindsay, can I thank you for humoring me in my long rants and passion for the Irish landscape? If people do want to learn a little bit more, adventuresinquietplaces.info. It's all one word, adventuresinquietplaces.info. I'm sure Lindsay will add it to the description as well. If you want to get into contact with us and just chat a bit more and see if there are some possibilities of working together. I have had an absolute blast. Lindsay, thank you so much for this.
Oh, you're welcome. Yeah, thank you too. This was a lot of fun, and yeah, it was really great to chat with you and get to know you and more about what you do. I had such a good time conducting this interview, and I hope you had a good time listening to it. If you'd like to learn more about the arrival method, go over to adventuresinquietplaces.info. You can also give me a follow over on Instagram, where my handle is its_OMG Tarot. And if you like what you heard, give me a 5-star review on Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts. It really does help. Alrighty, we'll talk next week. See you soon. Bye-bye.